Let's go straight across now to our assistant editor, Amitabh Revi, who's joining us from the newsroom for more on this. Amitabh, we are looking at the meeting which is going to be held by the Taliban leaders as we closely monitor the outcome of whether or not the ceasefire will officially be extended.
Well, that's the big question. We are hearing reports that the Afghan Shura will be meeting to discuss the extension of the ceasefire from President Ghani's side. Now, today is when the Afghan Taliban ceasefire ends. It was a 3-day Eid ceasefire that was announced by the Afghan Taliban, and there are indications that they may not extend that ceasefire if their spokesperson's statement is anything to go by. You were mentioning the Nangarhar attack yesterday, in which the Islamic State affiliate in Afghanistan took responsibility for killing not only Afghan security forces but Taliban members and civilians who had gathered to celebrate Eid in Nangarhar in the eastern province that borders Pakistan. The IS and Taliban have been in ongoing attacks against each other, especially in that province. So the statement that has come out from the Taliban has explicitly warned the Taliban fighters not to go out into cities, not to go out into areas that are controlled by the enemy, which could mean the Afghan security forces, which could mean international forces, and which could also mean the Islamic State in the Khorasan province. So whether they extend that ceasefire is the big question today. Of course, you were pointing out about international support, and what's interesting is that President Ghani has for the first time also said that if there are any peace talks that are initiated with the Taliban, they will look at international forces and their role. Something that the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in his statement has also said that the international forces' role, that is possible withdrawal of their forces, will be looked at. That's a key demand of the Afghan Taliban, that a date be set for the withdrawal of international forces before any peace talks take place. So unprecedented scenes that were not seen since the fall of the Taliban in 2001, since the US invasion. We saw Taliban fighters even enter Kabul and meet the interior minister, the Afghan interior minister. That was when celebrations were taking place on Eid yesterday.
And taking a cue from what you're saying, Amitabh, of course, is a special Eid celebration in Afghanistan, as we've been seeing dozens of armed Taliban militants entering the Afghan city of Ghazni to celebrate an unprecedented ceasefire. The two camps marked the end of the Ramzan fasting season with Eid greetings, handshakes and big hugs. Soldiers and militants hugged each other and took selfies on their mobile phones in several cities across Afghanistan, including the capital, Kabul. The Taliban announced a surprise 3-day ceasefire with the Afghan forces over the Eid holiday.
فقط به خاطر خارجی به خاطر امریکا بالش بعد از قانون ایران همون آلی که پیدا شد ایران ما داخل ما بین چه مشکل نداریم نه مشکل نداریم پیش باز مشکل نداریم خارجی عالم ایران همون باز میدانم که وقت یک خارجی اینجا باشه ما در روز محشر میدانم یا افغانستان کل از ما پلیس.
Going back across to my colleague Amitabh Revi. Amitabh, we have been getting in those heartwarming images of celebrations, hugs being exchanged between Taliban leaders and locals. These are also unprecedented scenes. Of course, the ceasefire was also called on account of Eid. So double celebrations in a way that have taken place in Afghanistan across the last 2 days.
Double celebrations is another thing. Scenes that are unprecedented since the US invasion and the fall of the Taliban in 2001. One would not imagine Taliban with the Afghan security forces, with civilians in Kabul, and not only that, meeting the interior minister as well. Cities across Afghanistan saw similar scenes. There was no violation of the ceasefire except that tragic incident in Nangarhar, and as we're saying, is the IS, which is usually also attacking, apart from the Afghan and international forces, is also attacking Taliban forces in various areas, especially in Nangarhar. So except for that tragic incident which took place in Nangarhar, there were no violations from either side, the Afghan Taliban or the Afghan National Security Forces. The ceasefire that the Afghan government, Ashraf Ghani, had announced did not include Daesh or the Islamic State in Khorasan province, Al-Qaeda or other groups. So that ceasefire did not include them, and they carried out that, or at least they claim to have carried out that attack, which tragically killed Taliban fighters, civilians and Afghan security forces while they were celebrating Eid.
And interestingly, that explosion earlier was called to be an accidental one. There were reports emerging that it was a rocket on a Taliban vehicle which actually accidentally detonated. Only later is when the Islamic State claimed responsibility. We're going to leave it there for the moment. Amitabh, thanks very much for joining us with those updates and perspectives.